Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a very large box of Ingrid Haebler, pianist extraordinaire, on Decca. Now, I have to be very honest and just come out and say it. 58 CDs, which is how many there are here, or 57 CDs, of Ingrid Haebler. No, it's 58. Pardon me. It says 58 on the top here, so I'll take their word for it. 58 CDs of Ingrid Haebler is too many CDs of Ingrid Haebler. It's that simple. She was a fine pianist, a sensitive pianist, but she just wasn't that interesting. Now, Jed Distler has reviewed this box for ClassicsToday.com, and if you're an insider, you can read his review and listen to some samples and draw your own conclusions. But I really believe in my heart of hearts that however well-intentioned she was, her repertoire was rather circumscribed, and her interpretive gifts were similarly circumscribed. The hardest thing for a critic to do, and I was discussing this set with Jed, actually. We were having a conversation about, how we felt about it and listening to it. And, the hardest thing for a critic to do, we both agreed, is to review something that's merely good. That's either not superlatively fabulous or horrendously awful. Because then you can exaggerate a little bit. You can have some fun with it. You can go a little crazy. But when something is just good, you can say it's good, and that's about all you can say. And Haebler is good. Sometimes she's better. There are some things in here which are better than that, and I will be happy to point them out. It's rather simple to figure out. She was a specialist in she was from Vienna. She was a specialist in the Viennese classics. Not so much Beethoven, sort of Beethoven, but basically Mozart and the other German composers of that classical period, some Schumann, some other things, and that's what she did. Schubert, and she was a sensitive soul, a sensitive artist. But I get the distinct impression listening to these performances, and I can point out a few of them. Something like the late Schubert sonatas, for example, or some of the Beethoven stuff, that she was overawed by what she had to do, by the greatness of the German classical tradition. I remember I had a very interesting conversation with Christa Ludwig, the late Christa Ludwig, the great mezzo-soprano, about this. And because I was asking her about a passage in her autobiography, and she was a lovely person, and she told me this, and she said, she was also Austrian and the daughter of artists, singers. So she really came from that tradition. And she said to me, we were raised to treat German art as something sacred. And sacred, just like it is in religion or church or whatever, can come dangerously close to inhibition. And when she was talking about the conductors who she'd worked with, she said that, her three great conductors that she worked with were Karl Böhm and Karajan and Bernstein. And she said with Bernstein, Karajan was an amazing accompanist. Böhm was a great dramatist. He was very exciting in the theater, and he was. People think of him as kind of cranky, but he was a very exciting opera conductor. But Bernstein, she said, taught me that music could give me pleasure. And for me, that was such an insight into what's going on with so many of these artists, why they all sound slightly inhibited. When you are preaching a sermon, you're not having a good time. You're earnest. You're serious. But do you communicate pleasure, the pleasure in the music? And that, I think, was Ingrid Haebler's problem. She didn't communicate to me pleasure, except in certain circumstances, when she experienced the pleasure of playing with a colleague, for example, or when she did her second Mozart sonata cycle, the one on Denon, not the one that's in here. when she had, perhaps acquired a certain amount of wisdom and just learned how to relax a little bit and let the music flow and speak with more naturalness. I mean, those are the qualities I'm looking for. They're the ones that are in rather short supply here. But let's go through it. All 58 fun-filled CDs. Actually, they come in clumps, so we can do it rather quickly. And we'll just take it from there. Let's look at the little book here. It's a very nicely put together box. Everything is like color coded and whatnot. I mean, it's very, very attractive. And okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay, so she did some Bach. Now, a serious artist playing serious Bach sounds very serious. Is it really, really enjoyable? Well, there are other versions of, for example, the French suites, which is what we're starting with, that I think have a little bit more poetry and a little bit more fire and expressivity. And then we've got Johann Christian Bach, J.C. Bach. Now, this is the stuff where she really excels. And people will make fun of her for that, or make fun of her, or poo-poo it, because J.C. Bach, he was the London Bach, and he was very rococo, and his music is somewhat light, and some would say ephemeral, and not deep or whatever, but, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. What matters is how well the artist is suited to the repertoire, and if she realizes what is in it with effectiveness and artistry, and she does. She makes the music hers. And this may be because there just isn't that much competition. I don't know. But she plays a fortepiano, first of all, as often as not in this repertoire, the J.C. Bach stuff, and she does it beautifully. And we get a pile of keyboard sonatas, and then sonatas for keyboard and flute, and more sonatas for keyboard and flute. And we get even more keyboard sonatas. Boy, this is discs. Let me see how much J.C. Bach is here. Discs 3, 4, 5, 6. These are sonatas accompanied and solo. And then 7 and 8 are keyboard concertos, which are very interesting. Because remember, Bach invented the keyboard concerto, and his kids took up the challenge, both CPE and JC. And so it's wonderful to hear these pieces that are so important in the history of the keyboard concerto. So we've got CD 9, and so up to CD 9 and CD 10, we have all the J.C. Bach stuff. And with the Capella Academica Wien under Edward Melkus, it's not obviously period instruments. It doesn't make any difference. She's playing a period instrument, and she plays it very, very beautifully. And I really think that rather than taking 58 CDs of stuff, some of which is duplicative, it would have been much better off if they'd just taken the things at which she really excelled at and reissued those. The J.C. Bach box with Ingrid Haebler is something worth having. It's worth having because of the rarity of the repertoire and also for the excellence of the performances. So then we've got Mozart. We've got the Mozart sonatas, which take us all the way up, plus the minuets and variations and all kinds of stuff. And let's see. Oh, there's more and more and more and more and more. And we get up to CD 21. See how quickly this is going to go? And as I said, the Denon Mozart Sonata cycle is better than the ones here, although this has lots of other piano works and keyboard pieces and variations and all kinds of other stuff in here as well. So then we have Mozart violin sonatas with Heinrich Szeryng. And here we have a partnership. And that partnership was very good for Madame Haebler because she's able to be an absolutely marvelous partner to Heinrich Szeryng. Now, he was a violin virtuoso, a free spirit at the violin, and her stricter foundation not only makes a superb accompaniment for his more freewheeling approach, but it allows her to partake of it when she has the spotlight, when she has to keep up, when the two of them work together. And he manages, by the way, to scale down his sound appropriately in Mozart to turn in a performance which is extremely stylish. And I think that probably has something to do with her example as well. So it's a true partnership. And it's beautiful. And that goes on for, many CDs, because Mozart wrote lots of violin sonatas. And then we've got the Mozart piano quartets, which, there are a million better versions of the piano quartets. These aren't bad, but, they're okay. And the Beethoven and Mozart piano and wind quintets, which are lovely. They're always fun to listen to. And then we have the Mozart piano concertos. Now, she did some of them more than once before she did the complete cycle. And as Jed pointed out, at this point, which we're talking about the first half of the 1960s, there were only a few complete Mozart piano concerto cycles. There was Lily Krauss, and there was Geza Anda, and there was the early Daniel Barenboim, and none of them were perfect, and neither are hers. She could be a little stodgy. The keyboard, the accompaniments sometimes are a little bit so-so. They're with different people. I mean, you do have the London Symphony Orchestra and Witold Rovitsky. That's fun. And you've got Alceo Galliera doing some of them, and the LSO with Colin Davis doing some of them. Now, Davis was a wonderful Mozartian, but in these performances, they both of them sound a little bit inhibited. This is, let me see, with Davis, you've got 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18, and 17 and 18. Then we've got Rovitsky again, and Galliera, and all these different people doing this stuff. It's not bad Mozart by any stretch of the imagination. It is small scale, neat, clean, old school Mozart. I mean, there's much more fire and passion in this music, in period instrument performances, some of them, and in later versions of the piano concerti, because our view of Mozart changed. He was not the precious little angel descended from God playing adorable melodies. He became a real human being who wrote deeply expressive music. Of course, I mean, they knew that then too. I mean, who am I killing myself here? Then she does some Haydn sonatas, and the Haydn sonatas are charming as well. They were fairly unusual then, but she does something it just baffles me. She does the Andante with variations in F minor. She leaves out all the repeats. It only takes 7 minutes. It's so stiff and unyielding. And the humor here is it's in short supply. And when the humor is in short supply with Haydn, you got a problem, quite frankly. She's better in the sonatas that are not funny, the ones that are a little bit more serious. But, yeah. All right, now we're up to CD 41 already. See how quickly this went? Beethoven violin sonatas, again with Szeryng. Very good cycle. It's a very, very good cycle. And it's really kind of remarkable if you listen, for example, to like the Kreutzer Sonata, how much fire she puts into the work. And she sort of doesn't in a lot of other places, but Szeryng does and she does. So I think that there's, like I said, it's the symbiotic element and the pleasure of playing in partnership. Pleasure. The key is the pleasure principle. But we get beyond the pleasure principle as we continue in the Schubert sonatas. Some very nice early sonatas, and the late sonatas are just boring. It's that simple. I think she seems a little bit overwhelmed, and especially, the big ones. What's a D959, 958, 957, but the impromptus and the moments musicaux, those thingies here, which are here somewhere, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure I saw them here somewhere. Let's see, there, the impromptus. And yes, the moments musicaux, beautiful. They're beautiful performances. Jed thought so. I think so. Jed is always right. I'm sometimes right. Really, really good. Really, really good. I couldn't agree more. So that's really nice. And she does some four-hand music and some other stuff like that. With, let's see, Ludwig Hoffmann, piano Schubert. Okay, violin sonatas. What's Ludwig Hoffmann doing here? Wait a minute. When did I hear that? Did I hear that? Ludwig Hoffmann. Oh, he's the other pianist. What am I talking about? It's still Schubert. I was losing my mind there. Okay, then we've got some Schubert violin sonatas. Those violin sonatas, which are delightful, and no one ever does them, and they're wonderful. Again, with Henrik Szeryng, it's terrific. And we have the Trout Quintet with Arthur Grumiaux, which is also marvelous. You see what's happening? You get the picture? You get the picture? That stuff is terrific. Chopin waltzes. So. Schumann. The Schumann's really good. Papillon and Kindersehen. And the Papillon, I mean, she's the perfect pianist for Papillon. Her playing has all of the lightness and delicacy and fantasy that those pieces demand. And the Kindersehen, too. Simplicity, heartfelt, soulful lyricism. That she could do really well. She could do it very well, and she does. The piano concerto is, the Franck symphonic variations are quite good. actually. This is with the Concertgebouw and Eliyahu Inbal. And then we've got some more Mozart piano sonatas on CD 58. Just a special little bonus. And that's it. That's the whole box. So as I said, you know, the stuff where she's really forced to be front and center all the time, the big works, she has a problem sustaining interest. I think she does anyway. And I think she sounds just a little bit too small-scaled and a little bit too neat, especially by today's standards, you know, where we have period instrument people going crazy all the time and all kinds of stuff happening. But she was a fine artist. She is. She's still alive, I think. She's in her, like, mid-90s now. And she was good. She was just good. 58 CDs of good isn't enough. They should have done everything with J.C. Bach, and they should have taken all of her accompanimental work, the Schubert and the Mozart violin sonatas, and the Beethoven violin sonatas, put them all in a box, Szeryng and Haebler, and we would have had some wonderful examples of her artistry. We really, really would. But as it is, this is a lot of stuff for what you get. And that's just the bottom line. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.